Okay, so for the last practice problem today, this one's a little more straightforward. Okay, there's not going to be any crazy division or anything like that. Also, let me give my students their access code for today. It's U underscore T 1 R E D question mark. U underscore T 1 R E D question mark. That is your code for today. All right, so when I'm looking at this, again, the rules that I give them is step one, start with the more complicated side. That's obviously the left side. Then we look for any kind of algebraic simplifications we can do first. So is there any factoring, FOILing, anything like that we can do, getting two terms into one? Well, as soon as I look at this, I see a greatest common factor. So, and not only that, is I see my answer is sine. So I'm going to factor out sine x from both of my terms. So sine, I factor out, I get 1 minus cosine squared x. And this should be getting kind of familiar to my students at this point. 1 minus cosine squared, that's one of the Pythagorean identities that we have. And this, we end up changing to sine squared x using the Pythagorean identity. And then sine times sine squared, which is sine times sine times sine, or sine cubed x, which is the answer we're looking for. So this one's really straightforward and easy. Now, you could have done it a little different way. Instead of changing or factoring out, you could have gone straight to actually using the Pythagorean identity if you wanted to. It would have been a little bit more difficult, and I'll talk about why in just a second. But we could have changed this, cosine squared to its trig identity, 1 minus sine squared. Okay, so in this one we change 1 minus cosine here to sine squared. In this one I'm going to change the cosine squared to 1 minus sine squared. Then I'm going to do my algebra, and I'm going to distribute this negative sign in. So I get sine x minus sine x plus, because negative times negative is positive, and sine times sine squared, which is sine cubed x. And then I have sine minus sine, which is 0, and that leaves me with sine cubed x. Okay, and there are a couple other ways of doing this, but these two are the easiest way. Okay, but these are more about the algebra than it is about the trig. And that's what you find a lot of these trig identities, is that even though it's got the trig identities in it, it's usually pretty algebra heavy. And that's usually where my students make their mistakes.